Okay, to find the value of theta in degrees, just in degrees, we're looking at the work we did yesterday. So what angle value, if I take the sine of it, I get radical 3 over 2. First of all, if I'm not looking at this, if it's not in front of me right now, I know it has to be in which triangle because there's only one triangle that has a radical 3 in it. It has to be a 30, 60, 90. So my answer is either going to be 30 or 60. If you can remember this one simple fact, the sine of 30 degrees is a half. If you can remember that one thing right there, I could tell you which angle this is. If I can remember the sine of 30 degrees is a half, then I know this is not 30 degrees. What does this have to be? It has to be 60 degrees. Okay, but it is up here where here's the sine of 60 is radical 3 over 2. But you're not going to have this. These you have to come up with on your own. For radians, we talked about how when we have the unit circle, the top half is how much radian? Pi. And this says 60 degrees and 180 degrees. How many 60s go into 180? 3 of them. So my radian for 60 degrees is the same thing as pi divided into how many sections? 3. This is pi over 3. Question B. I'm looking at cosine theta being radical 2 over 2. There's only one kind of triangle that has a radical 2 in it. What is it? 45. This has got to be 45. Has to be. And then we think about for radians. Here's pi, which is 180 degrees. We need 45. How many 45s fit into pi, or into 180 degrees? 4. So this is pi over 4. Pi divided by 4. Tangent of theta is radical 3. So I know it's 30 or 60. Maybe I don't have that one memorized yet. I will tell you the one that I do have memorized is the tangent of 30 is radical 3 over 3. And I memorized that by saying the 30 is the one with all the 3's in it. I don't know. Tangent of 30 is the one with all the 3's in it. And then I have memorized from there, the one that's just radical 3 is the other angle in that same triangle. That's how I have it memorized. You need to figure out a good way of memorizing it yourself. This is 60 degrees. And what radian is 60 degrees? You say, how many times does 60 go into 180? 3 times. Pi over 3. And then cotangent. I don't have cotangents memorized, but I have tangents memorized. So if I were going to think about tangent, if I were going to think about the tangent instead of thinking about the cotangent, what would I do to this number? I'd flip it. Okay. Flipped it. In order to have tangent be 1, that means in my triangle, my opposite and my adjacent side have to be the same. What kind of triangle do I have if my opposite and my adjacent side are the same? 45 degrees, which is pi over 4. Okay? The more you start thinking about that stuff, the memorizing it. The last of these examples are using the calculator to evaluate the trigonometric function. Okay. So you should know how to do cosine of 28 already on the calculator. What should I type in? Cosine 28. It says 4 decimal places. Did anybody get it? It's okay. So what's going to happen is we are doing degrees and radians in here. And on your calculator, when you go to the mode, everybody go to the mode together, even if you got the same answer as me. If you go to the mode, there is a radian or degree choice. So if it's in radian, you don't have to go anywhere, just watch for a second. If it's in radian, and I plug it in, I'm going to get a negative number. Or if it's a degree, I get a different number. So what happens on tests? Our people will have it in the wrong mode. And they don't even think about it, and they miss the question entirely because they didn't have it in the correct mode. So how do we know what mode to put it in? What are we typing in? Your calculator has no idea. It cannot see your worksheet. You have to tell your calculator that I am typing in cosine 28 what? Degrees. You have to tell it it's degrees. So when you type in cosine 28 and it's in degrees, it will tell you the correct answer. So 0.8829. Here's a crazy question. If you're like a junior or senior in high school, should you know how to round? Yes. So round correctly or miss a point. Okay. Question B. Tangent. All right, before I do anything, am I typing in degrees? Okay. However, when it's degrees, minutes, and seconds, you have to put special stuff in here. So I am going to have to do 34. Where do I find the degree symbol? Second, apps, which is angle, and then 1. And then 12, we find the minutes in the same place. Second, apps, and then there's the apostrophe. 51 seconds, where do we find that? Alpha, and then the plus sign. Alpha plus sign. So 0.67. Ooh, how do we round this correctly? We look at the fifth number, which is a 6. What does that tell me to do to the 9? Tells me to round it up. What's above 9? 10. So we have to like add in. I'll write it up here so you can see what I'm talking about. So we look at that, and that says round up, so I have to make this into a 10, but that means you have to carry the 1. So what happens when I add the 1 and 9 together? Oh, so I have to carry the 1. So I 0.6800. If you just put 0.68, then I'm going to think you rounded to the nearest hundredth and that you didn't follow directions. I know the zeros don't have to be there, but it says round to 4 decimal places, so you should have 4 decimal places there, showing me that you rounded to 4 decimal places. Do you understand? I know they don't have to be there, but we're going to follow the directions. Okay? All right, cosecant 12.6 degrees. So I am in degrees mode. I'm good there. Where's the cosecant button? Oh, no. Where's the cosecant button? Nope, it's not. It is not. Yeah. So the cosecant of theta is equivalent to 1 over sine theta. We didn't really write this down yet, but we know that the sine and the cosecant are reciprocals of each other. So a reciprocal is basically 1 over. So these are equivalent. Okay? So what I have to type in, what is my theta? Right. So I have to do 1 divided by sine 0.6 on my calculator. That's how you have to type it in. And people forget what to do. So writing this first step as you're doing it in homework might be helpful, because then you will remember rather than just typing in your calculator really fast. You'll have to remember what to do on a quiz or a test. So 1 divided by sine 12.6, or you could do alpha y equals 1 over sine 12.6, however you want to show your fraction. Oh, no. Then I'm going to round that to 4 decimal places. So 4.584. What do I do with that 1? Leave it. Okay. How do we type in cotangent? We don't. Cotangent theta is equal to 1 over tangent theta. So we're going to do 1 over tangent to put in 19 degrees, 16 minutes, 26 seconds where theta would go, which is always attached to the word tangent. The theta has to go with the tangent. So make sure you can get that on your own. You probably have already started. I'm slow. And then rounding that would be 2.8597. Any questions on this? Okay, so now we're going to do the inverse. Now we're going to do the inverse. So the inverse, instead of typing in cosine of an angle, we're going to find the angle. We're going to undo cosine. So we've talked about inverses in here. Inverse operations undo things. What's the inverse operation of squared? Square root. What's the inverse operation of multiplication? Division. I didn't really hear that answer. So in order to undo cosine, to get theta alone, there's only one thing that will do that. And that's the inverse of cosine. And you have seen that before. So to both sides of the equation, I have to do inverse cosine. That's the one thing that will cancel out just the cosine and give me theta by itself. That's the only way I can possibly ever take away the theta from the word cosine, is you have to cancel cosine out. That is not divided by cosine. That stands for inverse of cosine. You do know where that button is on your calculator. Yeah, so second cosine, 0.9370. And I get that theta is approximately 20 point, what did I round to? I forget what I round to for angles. I think I'm doing decimals. 2 decimals. We'll do 2 decimals for degrees. And we'll do 4 decimals for radians. Okay. 2 decimals for degrees and 4 decimals for radians. So I got 20.45 degrees. That would be degrees. How do I know that my answer is degrees? Jalen?
Because you're trying to find an angle.
But how do I know this is degrees and not radians? The 20.45. How do I know my answer is degrees? Because my calculator is in degree mode. That's how I know it's in degrees. So how can we find the radian answer? That's one way. We'll go over both ways that you can do it. So let's all go to mode. Let's change it to radian. And then to get out of that, you hit second mode. And it quits out of that. It doesn't matter what calculator you have. If you do second answer, it'll bring up the last question. Some of you can go up and grab the question again, but not everybody's can. But second answer will give you the last, second enter will give you the last question. So if I hit that again, you'll see my answer is now changed because it's now in a different mode. It's the exact same thing typed in twice. It's just one time it was in radians and one time it was in degrees. So in radians, it would be 0.3569. And I can either put radians or not worry about putting radians, because if there's not a symbol, if there's not a degree symbol, then it is radians. If there's a degree symbol, it's degrees. That's how we know which is which. Okay, the other way, if you don't want to keep changing your mode around because you forget, I'll show you the other way, and let's do this together. I'll show you the other way. So go back to mode, put it back in degree mode, and then second mode will quit. I'm going to go ahead and redo that question. So I do second answer, and then there's my original degree answer. How do you convert from degrees to radians? You're going to divide by, I want it to end in radians, so I want to divide out the degrees so that the degree symbols will cancel. So on top I have to have pi radians. So if I multiply by this answer, and I'm just going to use the answer, I'm not going to type in 20.45. I'm going to use this answer. You guys know how to use that on the calculator, right? I'm going to multiply by pi, and I'm going to divide by 180, and I should get the exact same answer. I wonder if it's the same if you use the rounded answer. Sometimes it would be, sometimes not. So it was the same to 4 decimals, but not always will be the same. So I just use the ANS, or just use that last answer. So there's 2 different ways that you can convert it to radians. You can either just keep changing your calculator around, or you can use the conversion. Either's fine with me. I don't care which one you do. Okay? All right, next one. Theta equals 0.7771. How do we cancel out cosecant theta? Do we have a cosecant theta inverse button thing? We have to change it to sine. So what is, how do we change cosecant theta into sine? How do we change it? I heard 1 over, but 1 over what? Okay, so we can flip this side, and it will change it into sine. So if cosecant of theta is 0.7771, then the sine of theta is 1 over 0.7771. So that's the sine of theta. Are we done? Is that the answer? No. Now what do we have to do? Inverse sine to both sides. That will cancel out the word sine, and that will give me theta by itself. So now I know what to type into my calculator. Inverse sine 1 divided by 0.7771. Oh no, I don't think I typed it in right. I did type it in right. Sorry. So we know that the sine is always the, what do you know always about the hypotenuse of any triangle? It's the longest side. So if I have a smaller side on top over the biggest side, it will always be less than 1 or equal to 1, but it can never be bigger than 1. Here I have my opposite being 1 and my hypotenuse being smaller than that. So that's why it's not working on our calculator. So we would write undefined if it doesn't work. But all of the steps that we did are correct. We just had one that didn't work. Okay? Let's hope. Oh, this one's not going to work either. when I was thinking about it, I wasn't thinking about flipping it. 0.9370. Let's do that. Now it'll work. Okay, so we've got secant of theta equals 1.9370. Is there a secant inverse button on our calculator? There's not. Okay, and we need to have cosine instead. How do I make secant into cosine? 1 over 1.9370. Will this one work when I type it in my calculator? Is this top smaller than the bottom? Okay, just making sure. So now to get cosine by itself, we inverse cosine. Not to get cosine by itself. To get theta by itself, we inverse cosine, both sides. If you are not taking the time to write down the notes, that's up to you. But these are the things that people miss all credit for on a test, because it's hard for me to do partial credit on a question that you type in a calculator. So it is very important that you do know how to correctly solve these equations. So second cosine, 1 divided by 1.9370. And I get approximately 58.92 degrees. And how do I know this is degrees? Because I'm in degree mode. So then your choice, if you want to convert it by multiplying by pi divided by 180, you can do that. Or if you want to change into radian mode and just type the equation in a second time, we'll get our radian answer. Either way you do it, you should get 1.0283. Last question. Tangent of theta is 111.9999. 999, yeah. So do I have a tangent inverse button? I do. So first, to cancel out tangent. So we do that to both sides of the equation. Tangent inverse. That will cancel out tangent. I'll get theta by itself. Second tangent, 111.9999. I get 1.5619. Is that degrees? Yeah, because you know what I did? Is I didn't change my mode back when I went to this one, which is fine. So my mode right now is in radians. So now I know that this is the radian answer. So if I want to find the degree, then I should change it back. Or some of you might not even be changing it. Some of you might be multiplying and dividing. Multiplying by pi divided by 180, which is fine as well. So the degrees are going to be 89.49 degrees. And I know that one's degrees. You know that one's degrees because you put a degree symbol. Yes?
So for a question like inverse undefined, is it going to be undefined in code?
Radians would be exactly like, this is a good question because this is the thing that I want you guys to understand. The faster you understand it, the better. Degrees and radians are just two different measurements of saying the same thing. Just like this is inches and foot. It's still the same measurement. 12 inches, 1 foot, exactly the same measurement. So if it doesn't work, it's not together because it just doesn't work. Okay? Thank you for that question. And I think that's it, right? That's it? There's nothing about, yeah. Okay, so the assignment is in the book again. Yay! I've already posted the assignment on Canvas. I did not post the answer key yet, but I can do that. And you will see when I click on Canvas, it says 4.3 notes. Those were posted Monday because they're the same notes. Here's the assignment, and then it says book link was posted yesterday. So it's the same book link from yesterday. You can just click on yesterday to get the book. And then I have not posted the answers, and I haven't stopped recording the video yet, so that's not posted either. So I'll have this up. Let me just stop my video first.